Sacrifice, the 11th of September, 2024. I can't move. Seriously, the purpose of thinking is to have your stupid ideas die instead of you, and that's part of the reason why your enemy can be your best friend. Because if someone can take out something you think because they can show you how it's erroneous and counterproductive, and then you wouldn't have to go through all the trouble of learning that stupidly in the world. That's a fine gift. When the Muslim spoke about the tonality, he had not learned too much about it anyway. Neither have I, but assumptions would be made to dictate and discern who would be a part of the gathering. Those who do hear the call will respond and know what to respond. Then you would also have the invisibles who do attend such gatherings but choose to remain anonymous, to be unknown rather than to be found out. It would be much easier to manage had it been accompanied with certain benefits, abilities, coupled with knowledge about the topic and understanding of limits. Would God not say to the tyrant, I bring the dead back to life, not you? I would presume that this statement was so hard to the Nimrod when Abraham came to him, telling him that it is only God who gives life and it is only God who takes life. Upon hearing that, what would the tyrant think? Why would they feel insulted if they are told of a limitation in their ability? Had the tyrants who claim that their abilities are infinite, that it would reach the point when we would beat the concept of death and would remain alive all the time, not known that it is to God we will all return after death? Therefore, our death is a necessity rather than a punishment. God does not punish with death anyone on the spot unless God absolutely hates them. Those who would die by being killed by a brother would even see their brother who had killed them. It is much like the curse of Cain, who might have been punished by a disturbing mental disorder, where he wouldn't be able to sleep his entire life imagining being the one who had been killed. It is no wonder that the mark of Cain is a reference to death. That the angel of death was also created before Adam. He was the one who succeeded the test from God when he commanded the angels, his closest, to descend upon earth and bring him soil from the earth so that he would use it to create Adam's flesh. The angel of death took soil from every part of the earth, causing that humans would take many different colors upon being born. God willed that the angel of death being the one to bring the soil from the earth, because when he touched the soil and brought the soil, it is symbolic to being brought by death before even being born. When God himself formed the soil into clay, it is akin to bringing it life again after it was brought by death. When God gave it life again, it became flesh. It is no wonder that nothing will survive death except the soul. It is because the soul itself is sanctified, because it was from God. Avoid the point in which a soul becomes nothing, because you don't know everything. The soul does not become nothing, and therefore I don't think that God will ever kill a servant. And so, I'm hoping that Constantine can stand in for the audience, or the critical and skeptical audience. We are talking about very difficult issues. It's highly likely that, and the lecturer begins to pause. He asked for Constantine again, and thereafter he began to stutter. I would like to find a better term than stutter. Yet again, the lecturer continues his performance. It is not a seance, so why would he continue to invite a dead person into the conversation? What's more, he asks that he be held accountable for criticism and skepticism from the crowd. If the lecturer was a medium who was able to actually communicate with the dead spirits, why would he also ask for and invite in criticism and skepticism? It seems as though the lecturer was publicly admitting to being able to communicate with the dead spirits, but is also holding them accountable for the things that they had committed. It is like the spirit is being accused by humans, but that is not a permissible claim. It is similar to hypocrites who would try to convince people of Adam and Eve, yet beginning that by inviting the dead to be held accountable for propagating skepticism. The souls of the dead are returned to God. They cannot be called to question by humans. In other words, when you have formulated a belief based on words said by a specific man from the past, it is not your entitled right to call them to testify or to accept criticism by your own audience. It is no wonder that the spirit that was actually sent, the good spirit, wanted to give you what you want, attention, and give your audience what they want, an entertaining performance. And for that reason, the spirit is a good spirit. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم هل ينظرون إلا تأويله يوم يأتي تأويله لا ينفع نفسا إيمانها لم تكن آمنت من قبل وكسبت في إيمانها خيرا صدق الله العظيم. I could formulate what I'm stating more clearly and more precisely, and so Constantine will come out and, long pause, will discuss what was presented tonight, and then we'll turn to the question that you've kindly delivered and discuss those, and then we'll reintroduce the band, and that should do for the evening, and so that's the plan. Or that he had internalized the idea of Constantine, and thus he is calling out the bunch of knowledge that he had associated with Constantine from his subconscious mind. This should not have been identified as schizophrenia or a split personality disorder. If people were born with the ability to compartmentalize the ideas and concepts that they have learned from people they read in such a way that they would be able to invite such subconscious personalities to resurface, it seems as though we have developed a cure for a mental condition by forcing our way into it. Even if you do make contact with Constantine, what would he have to say? Are you saying that you are speaking with the good spirit of Constantine? If he does answer, and he is a sharp thinker, as you say, why are you being forced to take pauses in your speech? We cannot bring the dead back to life. Once they die, they are sent to a different realm. Even if that realm is attached to this realm with any form, it would not be as easy for humans as it is to call them onto stage and ask that they take criticism and skepticism from the audience. The audience are watching you. After inviting Constantine on stage, the lecturer begins to stutter and take periodic pauses. It is like he had attached his decision-making, his free will, and his ability to speak or even reason with what he's speaking to, the good spirit of Constantine. It is like calling someone the source of your knowledge other than the actual source of all knowledge, God, as though you are going to speak in the knowledge taught to you through learning about Constantine and what Constantine taught and what Constantine thought, if he did write exactly what he thought. Why would Constantine be held accountable for your own understanding with which you are speaking? No one should speak out of their own desires. People should be able to be allowed to think the way they want. It is not freedom to say what you want, when you want, and on whichever basis you want. It is the constant self-awareness that humans are gifted with. If humans do not keep an eye on their speech and what they preach to others, even atheists, they would definitely cause them to err, making false assumptions and arrogant claims in their attempt to prove themselves and their points of view. It is like a person's opinion is what matters to him most. Whether the lecturer is demonstrating how a person would use reason or would perform a seance or actually be an educator, he is coming at it from the position of entitlement that our generation is drenched in. They think they are entitled to be obeyed by their audience, by their viewers, by their political regimes and their institutions. They think they have a golden ticket to whichever they want by just being this scientifically advanced. I wonder why people like the lecturer did not revolt against these institutions with truth rather than with a performance. Why not attempt to propagate faith rather than reasoning for faith? Why would faith require reasoning? If you have faith in certain traits and attributes of God, why would you need reason to believe that He exists? As such, if you are speaking to atheists, agnostics, skeptics, or hypocrites, you cannot reason with them without further evidence. It is unfortunate that people would be compelled to listen to the whole lecture without interjections and corrections. When one person is seen by the group through their constant attention paid to him that he is telling the truth, does that truth, he says, govern them? In other words, if people listen to a lecturer saying something, does that something, he says, become the new addition to the programming of the group's minds and metacognition? What do people internalize from TED Talks and sermons like that? Are we not supposed to listen to people and pay attention to them? Social science is also concerned with human behavioral patterns when they are either put on the spot or when they speak to the public. I think we're on the dawn of a new set of realizations. Bowing his head and resting his last point, backtracking on him and making a going backwards gesture. A new set of realizations that will return us to the fundamentals. In other words, he is attempting to propose a new set of realizations about the fundamentals of the idea of the sins of Adam and the true nature of Eve. I would say now that scientists themselves, from a multitude of different disciplines, understand that. Wait, what do you mean, understand? Do we even know what other people understand already? The idea that we see the world as a place of facts, or that we see the world as rational creatures, or that you can even see the world that way is wrong. Wait, what? Wrong. Restating it. And I believe that it is being demonstrated to be wrong. This is not about mere philosophical opinion anymore, although it's also that, like a woman would say. One example, for example, is that the newest artificial intelligence systems that we've designed, that last language models that have burst onto the stage in the last year or thereabouts, ChatGPT, the catastrophic Gemini that Google so foolishly launched, Elon Musk's Grok, these systems are trained like human beings are trained. They have an aim, they have a purpose. They were trained with reward and punishment, so to speak. They are approximations to a target. They see the world through a structure of value that they have absorbed from human beings. When he said they have absorbed from human beings, he made the gesture pointing to himself and then in front of him. That is like he is saying to reassure that the systems are taking things that were supposed to make people unique, that these systems are compiled imitating human beings and by copying human beings. To make the world's smartest linguistic machines, we have to inculcate in them the structure of value.